How's everybody doing today?
Good, good.
Good.
Excellent. Do we have any last presentations on PowerPoint or anything like that? I know there were a couple of people that mentioned they had some serious technical difficulties trying to get the video uploaded onto or recorded so that I could upload it. All right. I'm going to start by taking roll. Is Kayla here?
Here.
Sarah? Camilla? I see you.
Here. Yes.
Nicole?
Here.
All righty. Bailey?
Here.
Okay, Madeline?
I'm here.
All righty. Emma? Is Grace here? Summer?
Here.
All right. Kelly?
I'm here.
Excellent. Catherine? Taylor?
Good morning.
Good morning. JC?
Here.
Alexis?
Here.
Brianna?
Good morning.
Good morning. Brooke?
I'm here.
All right. Lauren?
I'm here.
Okay. David?
I'm here.
Excellent. Hiram?
Yes, sir.
All right. Rachel?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Double check on a couple other people. Is Sarah here? Emma? Grace? Or Catherine? All right. I wanted to mention a couple things. One is that, again, almost everybody has done their SRIs. It is really important that you make sure that those get turned in the next 3 days. Well, today, by Thursday night, they need to be turned in. And send me the receipt by then, and then you'll get the extra credit. Grace, is that you?
Yep, it's me.
Okay. All right. And if you have any absences to make up, Thursday again is the day for that. A couple people have said that they were doing their informal presentations, and they mentioned videos and stuff for their service learning stuff. Those need to be emailed to me so I can put them on our YouTube channel, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. What I wanted to do today is I have 3 questions, And the first one, half of you will answer. Second one, the other half will answer. And then the last one, all of you will answer. Now, I know that there is one person that needs to go to a job pretty soon. So I'll have her answer 2 questions at the beginning, and then it will go on regularly with everything else. Did Sarah, Emma, or Catherine make it?
I'm here. Sorry, I slept and passed my alarm.
Well, you're here now. That's what counts. Woody Allen said that over 90% of success is just showing up. So you started on the right path. Okay, the first question is, what is the difference with 3D design compared to the stuff that you ordinarily work with? And I think, Camilla, you're the one that has to go to a job, right?
That's right.
All right. I am putting you on the spot a little bit, but can you think of what is the difference, one or some of the biggest differences that you've noticed going to 3D to what you ordinarily do?
Yeah. I think that 3D design has a different interaction with the audience that is working at the artwork, and also the space that surrounds it. And obviously, we will see differences in the materials that are used. And I think there's differences, day one when you start planning your artwork. And I've seen that during the semester as we, planned and did sketches and everything. But once you go from those sketches to the materials and you get your hands on it and everything, it's just completely different from working on a computer or even just a 2D design that's on a flat piece of paper. So
What medium do you normally work with?
I usually work on my computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that you're talking directly from your experience, and it is a big shift going from
Yeah.
to something physical.
Yeah, definitely.
You're probably not going to risk getting a paper cut using one of the electronic pens while you're working on your computer, are you?
True. I guess that's true. Yeah, it's a little bit safer.
Now, I have 2 questions for you. 2 more questions. Just one really, really quick one, and then an observation, and then we'll go on with everybody else. Did you do the research or the service learning?
I did the research.
What benefit or what surprised you that you got out of the research that you did not expect to?
The main thing for me was the different materials that the artists that I chose used. It was Doho So, and I wouldn't have thought of using the materials in the way that he used them. And so I was just amazed at how he created this big scale pieces with fabric and just different materials, and it was amazing. So I think just the use of materials and the unexpected for me was what, I don't know, what surprised me the most as I studied his work.
I think those are some really good observations. Okay, last question. This is kind of a 2-part. What was the most challenging aspect of the class, and what was the biggest win for you in the class?
Well, I think the biggest win for me was actually making that shift of, learning how to use other materials and what relationship I could have with the piece and the piece with the environment and with whoever that was looking at it. And I think that was also some of the challenges that I had to face because of that, because I wasn't experienced in 3D design. And, but I think going through every module and just learning about every single artist, like the artist reviews, helped me so much because I was looking at, you know, the masters, those who were doing art for a long time, and I could look at those examples and their basically their mindset when making art. And so it was very challenging for me just because I wasn't experienced in it. I wasn't experienced in it, but it was really helpful for me.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much.
Of course.
All right, guys, that is a model of what our final is for the rest of our time together today. Thank you very much, Camilla. Perfect. And I'm going to go through and ask those questions, and we'll go through everybody answering them. And then we'll ask the next question and go through the same kind of thing. So that's, I really appreciate Camilla volunteering to go first and to kind of show everybody what we're doing. Is Sarah or Catherine here? Did either of you two make it?
Yeah, I popped in. Thank you.
Which one are you?
This
Sarah.
is Sarah. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So thank you again, Camilla. So the first, what I would like to do is we're going to go through, and half of you are going to answer what is the difference with 3D. Then we're going to go through again, and half of you are going to talk to about the benefit of research or service learning. And then we're going to go through, and everybody is going to just spend a couple of minutes talking about first the most challenging aspect of the class, and then the biggest win that you had, or biggest epiphany, best success, or barring all of those, the least miserable moment. Either one is just fine. So I need 9 people. Actually, I need 8 people to volunteer to talk about what is the difference with 3D and what you normally do. And when you answer this, first talk about what you normally do briefly, and then state how different the 3D is from that. So who would like to go first?
I can go.
All right. And the other thing is, please tell me your name when you do this, too.
Bailey.
Bailey. All right. Excellent. Okay. Go for it, Bailey.
So just the 3D question first.
Yes. And all you're going to be doing is asking or sharing with us what you normally do in the real world experience, and then how different 3D design was for you.
Okay. So I normally work with computers also, doing art on Illustrator and InDesign and that kind of stuff. I would say the biggest difference would be, I feel like 3D design is more hands-on. You need to like think out of the box more to like think of all the materials you could use, because there's so many. Like we even worked with this semester, like with the cocooning project, like you could use anything to use for art. And I think that's a really cool thing about 3D art is, especially with what I usually do, it's just illustration and just drawing over or whatever it is. But I think that's really cool that you can create art from whatever, basically, in 3D art.
All right, very cool. Good observation.
And then, what was the next question?
Actually, that's good for right now. We're going to cycle
Okay.
through this, so that's perfect.
Okay.
All right, who would like to go next?
I can go.
Okay, and you are
Madeline.
Okay.
So I normally work with like cameras and Lightroom and that kind of thing. So I'd say the biggest difference is like having a relationship with space, because normally in pictures people see a picture, it's just a picture, right? So that's what they see, and you can set it up as such. Whereas with 3D art, the viewer has a relationship with all sides of the piece, and with angles and with space and with lighting, and there's a lot more work that goes into figuring that dynamic out, and also like materials. There's going to be a lot more materials. I've never really worked with so many different materials before. So I would say presentation is a huge thing. How like the end product is just so vastly different than what I'm used to working with. Yeah, that's what I would say.
All right, great. So for you as a photographer, was that first project that we did with the little house and taking pictures of it, was that a good transition?
I think it was. Yeah, I think for sure it helped me to relate more. I mean, like, have something that was reliable that I knew how to do.
All right, good. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Brianna?
Yeah. Okay.
I heard two voices, but I think your voice was just slightly faster.
Okay. Cool. So I work mainly on the computer, in Illustrator, but I also work in paper and pen, and I create stippled 3D flowers. I love to do that. But I mean, I feel like there's a huge difference between pictures that are like created by a computer or even paper, and what 3D art is, because I feel like there's a bigger emotional connection when it's 3D, because it's there and it's like in your space and it's real and you can touch it and you can actually you can see it, and you can most of the time see it from multiple different sides, so you can get multiple different emotional reactions, and like you have to think about what you're feeling and how you're feeling and why you're feeling it. So there's a lot more emotional thought that goes into 3D art that I feel like is really important, especially for humans, because we're like a feeling species. And I feel like seeing and being able to touch something that's tangible is super important for us, and to feel it.
I like that. So you're more essentially physically invested in the work, basically.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Who would like to go next?
I could, if that's all right.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right.
Sure.
Sorry, who's?
I'll go next after him. This is David.
Taylor.
Okay.
This is Taylor.
Let
All right.
Taylor go first.
All right, Taylor, go for it.
I feel like the concept of texture was. Oh, sorry. I usually work digitally or on pen and paper. And I usually work with like illustration or graphic design. But the idea of texture, like really became more important to me. Like my eyes were really open to that. Like the materials that you use and the message that can change is like mind blowing to me. Especially, I don't know why, but when I did the artist research for Nick Cave, that like kind of blew my mind for some reason. Just like the way that he picks his materials so carefully, and the way that like just changing it from like a stuffed animal to specifically a Beanie Baby can like change everything about like the final product. That was really fascinating, and I don't feel like I ever realized that with the medium that I've been using. Like if I want to draw a texture, I just study references and I just draw it, but it's completely different when you're working with physical objects. So that's what I thought was interesting.
All right, excellent. That's some good stuff in there. I was just thinking while you were talking about one of the things that really shocked the art world was Andy Goldsworthy trying to present his uh, layered silk screens as real art. And what he was doing was essentially painting with textural components that were completely outside of expectation or a cultural norm for quote unquote fine art painting. And I think that transition was similar for him for what you were talking about. But those are good observations. And Nick Cave is pretty amazing. So I have to agree there. All right, Mr. Simon.
Yeah, so normally I work with charcoal and oil paint lately, and just 2D materials in general. And the thing with 2D is you're always trying to create illusion, to create that sense of space and depth. Most of the time, you're never physically creating it. You're always trying to trick the viewer into believing that there's actual dimension in your flat plane piece. And so working with 3D is completely different. It kind of hit me the hardest, or not the hardest, that's kind of the wrong way to say it, but I kind of opened my eyes the most when we did the carved biomorphic abstraction, because it was subtractive and it was just completely different than adding, which is all I've been used to, both in 2D and the little bit of 3D work I've done beforehand. Is it's all add, but having to subtract and never being able to revert after that is completely different.
That's really kind of cool too, because I think that the subtractive process, I've had students that have had a really difficult time emotionally with that, because there's so many other things that are much more forgiving, and you really don't have any space for screwing up with that. And I can imagine it just slightly, well, and I say that tongue in cheek, but just slightly nerve wracking. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, who would like to address this question next?
I can go next.
Brooke. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm asking for names because Canvas doesn't show me always who's talking, and every once in a while it does. So I can, I mean that helps. But yeah, if you'd like to address that question, that'd be great.
Okay, so I usually work just like painting and drawing and stuff, so normally just 2D. But I think the biggest difference was just like the depth and dimension that 3D has. Because it's usually just sorry, I'm trying to think what I was writing here. Yeah, basically just the physical depth, because you're trying to just add that unlike 2D where you have to kind of trick the viewer, just like David was saying earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to actually do it this time instead of just faking it. So
Well, for both you and David, either one can pipe in on this. You said tricks the viewer with 2D. Is it really tricking, or are you involving them? And do you lose some of that with the 3D because you're not doing an extra layer of visual, for lack of a better term, chicanery? Do you think that kind of limits involvement with the viewer a little bit when you don't have to do that, or is it just different?
I think it's just different. I don't think I don't think it's, I mean, I guess it just depends on the artist. If they feel a certain way about it, then maybe they feel more connected if they do 3D, but I think I actually feel more connected if I'm doing 2D, but I still enjoy doing 3D. I just feel more connected, like, to the viewer if I'm used to what I'm doing, but I
Right.
I still see the difference. But
Okay, I think that's good. Excellent observation. And I think Taylor, you were talking about texture and using texture in the physical three-dimensional texture. And I mentioned an artist. The artist that I was thinking of was Andy Warhol, not Andy Goldsworthy. So I apologize for that. Okay, David and Brooke, those are both really good answers. Who would like to go next? We have 3 more to do on this question.
I can go. This is
All right.
Grace.
Okay, excellent.
So I generally don't stick with one media for very long. But lately, like before this class, I was working more with like watercolor and then dabbling a little bit in like doing small like figurine sculptures. But this like 3D class has been different for me because I've been using a lot more different types of like 3D mediums instead of just like air dry clay. And I really
Are you really what?
Oh, sorry, I got muted somehow. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
It's been really fun to kind of like really dive into like the form and playing with more textures, and I really, really enjoyed The Wire, especially that project. I don't know, I just really took my time with it and really enjoyed exploring like what was possible with that. So yeah.
All right, excellent. Very good. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, and who are you?
Summer.
Summer. Okay, thank you.
I kind of just agree with what everyone has been saying, and I think that the difference for me is the emotional response that comes with creating something 3D rather than something two-dimensional, because yeah, my main medium is like painting and drawing. So I don't know. I just think that the labor of having to make something with your hands, I would say that you get like more attached to the work. That's just me. And the texture and the form is a lot bigger deal in 3D design than with 2D design. And 2D design, I just have to basically use my hands to like make gestures and create something that, like everyone else has been saying, is kind of an illusion for the viewer. But with 3D design, whether it's a relief or in the round, it is using your hands, using all of your senses, creating textures that is not just a gesture with your hand of paint. And I think that evokes a really strong emotional response in the artist that's creating and also the viewer, because it's just the fruit of your labors. It's very intense compared to what I have been doing, and yeah.
I think these are good observations, and it sounds almost like you're more emotionally engaged. Like I think Taylor was talking a little bit about involving yourself in the 3-dimensional stuff, and maybe 2D stuff is a little bit safer. And I think that it comes in a large part from, this is probably the first time most of you have done 3-dimensional work, and it's kind of exciting to see your response to that. So those are good things to hear. All right, we have one more person that needs to address this question, and we'll move on to the next one. Who would like to go last for this question? What is the difference between what you normally do and 3D?
I can go. This is JC.
All right, excellent. Thank you for, let's see.
So So usually what I do is I usually just do traditional media, but I also have a lot of experience with 3D animation. And so I thought that I would be better at this than I was, but turns out it was actually really, really hard to do 3D in a physical world. I don't know why, it just seemed it was so much easier to do it digitally in a 3D environment there, because I feel like it was easier to access a wider range of materials in a smaller space, whereas in the physical world it takes a lot more time and you have to gather materials, and if you mess something up you can't just hit undo. And so like other people have said, kind of the biomorphic abstraction was a big factor to that, where I realized how hard it was. But yeah.
Those are really good observations. And what I think is interesting is you have lots of experience with 3D design already in the virtual space, but it is a marked difference between that and just the physical world 3D design. I think those are really good observations. All right, excellent. So we are going to be moving on. Everybody that did not answer that first question is going to be answering this next one. The next question is, tell me, please share with me the benefits that you received or you gained from doing either research project. Tell us a little bit about the artists that you learned about, or tell us the benefits of the service learning that you did. So either way, so when you talk about this, mention the artist that you worked on or the service project that you did, and just tell us what the benefits were of doing that, exploring that. So who would like to go first?
I can real quick.
Oh,
And if you already answered, you don't have to answer this one.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
So David, don't worry about it.
okay, I'll go. This is Kelly.
Kelly, okay, Swope,
Yes.
right? Okay.
So I did the research project that was on George Segal, and what I found to be really interesting and that benefited me the most in researching him was how he switched from painting. He was already in his career and pretty well developed, and he switched to his sculptures to focus on that. And I think sometimes as artists or as an artist, I personally try to force myself into painting or force myself into drawing and into a medium that I feel like I have to learn to be an actual artist, I guess, in a sense. But just, it gave me hope that I could, it's never too late to like change what I'm doing and to explore a new medium and to be successful in another area of art as well. So I thought that that was really interesting when researching him.
All right, excellent. That's a really good observation. I think, I complained during the course of the semester, I've complained a little bit about how the Industrial Revolution has kind of separated fine arts from practical arts. And I think one of the benefits of the Industrial Revolution is allowing artists to explore their craft as just kind of an unfolding process where you can actually have the luxury of choosing a medium that seems to resonate with you. Because our ancestors 500 years ago, if you were an artist, you worked with whatever medium was necessary. With the separation being between the guilds. But, if you were asked to do art in whatever situation, that was pretty much your calling, because you were beholden to whoever was essentially making sure that you fed your family. And I think today we have just a wonderful opportunity to work with the media that sings to us the most. So I think that was a good observation. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go. This is Hiram.
All right. All right, excellent. Go for it.
So I am still currently doing the research project, and the artist that I am researching is Mark Langen. He works with corrugated cardboard, actually. He uses different layers of the cardboard to render 3D sculptures and in-box designs. Pretty much like painting, but with cardboard. And what I found, what really shocked me the most when I first started researching him was he was, I don't want to say a basically normal guy, but he was. Like, he wasn't an artist by trade. He's more of a self-proclaimed artist, and it was when he was doing recycling one day that he looked at all the cardboard and he's like, this is going to waste. I wonder what I could do with this. And that just started something with him. He had a thought and he pursued it. And he actually has a pretty successful career now, self-made, and it was all because he had an idea and he decided to run with it. And I think as an aspiring artist, I think that is very inspiring. Because, I mean, all art is ideas made manifest in one material or another. So I think being able to take Mark Langen's example and apply that to myself will help me in many different aspects, not in just my art, but in my life to come. I think he's a very inspiring man.
That's a really cool observation. I really like that. I haven't heard people necessarily talk about that aspect or that benefit, where somebody's inspiring because they've done something that nobody else has ever done before. That's very cool. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go next. This is Kayla.
All right.
Okay, so I did the service learning project, and for me, it didn't work out exactly like I had planned, but I still felt like I learned a lot about kind of myself in that sense. I was like originally planning on going to help teach a little bit about photography, and I kind of realized that I actually really enjoy teaching, which is something that I didn't expect. Like, I was getting super excited about preparing a lesson and like being able to help students. And for me, like, it was beneficial in that sense, and it kind of like made me think about, like, should I pursue something in teaching, or like should I try to reach out to other people in the future and like kind of try to plan something to help. And I wasn't able to like directly help those people, but for me, like it helped me a lot in that sense.
That's excellent. Are you the one where the person just became really rude all of a sudden and didn't want to talk to you anymore?
Yeah, we had a plan and then just kind of threw me off the deep end right at the end.
Oh, that's so helpful. That I think the service learning thing, you never know what you're getting into, do you? And that's because you had a really solid plan at the beginning and it fell apart. But I'm glad that you were still able to figure something out. So excellent, good work. All right, who would like to go next?
This is Sarah. I can go.
All right, excellent. You're the restaurant expert.
Yes, expert in all things food and service. Thank you.
All right, go for it.
So I researched Alexander Calder, and he's an extremely innovative and inspiring artist. And I think he really managed to do what we all are trying to do. And I think more than anything, his story just inspired others and art to come. But he combined parts of his life, like the circus and loving being around friends and just performing and creating memories, he combined different styles of his culture and what he grew up doing, and really created something completely brand new, which is what I think we're all trying to do, is create something unique that is authentic as well. And I think he started something really cool, which is focusing art on like the viewer's experience. And that's something I really like about 3D art too, is that you can manipulate the experience for the viewer. And I think it's something that is thought more about in 3D art than anything else, is, you know, lighting, manipulating the feeling and the sound and space around the art that's going on. Some artists will like give directions on how to walk through the art. It's just very much in the forefront of three-dimensional artist's mind, is how is somebody going to be walking through or like receiving my art. And I think a lot of that stemmed from Alexander Calder, and he's the greatest. I really do love him. So very inspiring, I think.
So you've become a Calder evangelist.
Oh, I'm obsessed. He is the absolute man.
That's great. Well, excellent. Who would like to go next?
I can go. This is Emma.
All right, great.
So my research project was I did the artist research project, and the artist I picked was Sandy Skoglund. And for me especially, like for the longest time, I've always kind of like turned my nose up at like high art or fine arts, because like it's viewed very much like an elitist thing, especially like in a lot of the online spaces that I've been a part of. And like just seeing like her approach to it as being still a communicative experience between like the creator and the viewer can help change my perspective a lot. And instead of like writing off like this entire other facet of art that I've never really explored before, it just gave me like a deeper appreciation, not just like for the amount of like craft that goes into her work, but like into more conceptual art in general. And I thought that was really neat. Just like to be able to see, you know, all this love and attention and care and detail that goes into like the forms of media of art that I normally enjoy also goes into this more conceptual stuff. And you can end up coming away with some really interesting messages and perspectives from it, because it can be more open to interpretation. And I really enjoyed that.
All right, that's excellent. Very good observations. Okay, who would like to go next? One thing that I appreciate is that you guys are coming forward. The last one, I had to start calling on people. So this is great. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 more people that need to address this question, and then we'll finish up with the last part of the our final. So who would like to go next?
I can go. Oh, I can go. Bailey.
Okay, Bailey, you don't need to. You already answered the first one.
Oh, I thought we had to do all three for some reason.
No. Camilla was the only one that I forced to do that. Who else?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're good. So the people we have left are Nicole. Let's see, Alexis, Lauren, and Rachel. So what are you for?
I'd be willing to go. This is Lauren.
All right, excellent. Go for it.
Okay, sorry, I'm I'm blanking. Can you remind me of what the
Yeah,
topic
let us
was?
know if you did the research, and if you did the research, the artist, or if you did the service, and just tell us some of the benefits of doing that.
Okay, I researched the artist Angelica Arendt, and I really like her art. Like I'm really glad I found her stuff just because I resonate so much with the techniques she uses and the background and the stuff she's trying to do. Like, I don't know what it is, but I've actually noticed a lot this semester. There's a lot of artists that, like, a lot of female artists with a background in textile design that lean towards, like, kind of like a natural or, like, just sort of like mossy, lichen like kind of artworks, and Angelica Arendt is one of them, and I've been glad to find them because that's the kind of exact art that I would want to make if I were to do fine art. So it was good to find them for inspiration.
All right, excellent. That's very cool. Yeah, I've kind of noticed that too. It's the people you're talking about seem to gravitate towards like organic non-plant growth. You know, it's like coral, or it's moss, or it's lichen, or it's fungus, or things like wasp or bees nests, things like that. Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. That's a really interesting observation. I didn't realize it until you just said that. So that's kind of cool. All right, who would like to go next? And we're looking for Nicole, Alexis, or Rachel.
I can go. This is Nicole.
Alrighty.
So I did the research project on Slinkachu, and what I thought was really interesting was that he started out in illustration and then went into an advertising job, and then he wanted to do like a side hobby, which was his tiny little figures that he'd take photos of.
Right.
And I just thought it was interesting that the different paths that he took to get to where he is today. And just think like with my own art, I used to just think I'm like, oh, painting is kind of just my hobby, but now I'm like, this could be like my career, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's a funny observation because nobody cares a bit about Slinkachu's advertising, do they? Nobody cares. But I mean, almost everybody recognizes his work internationally. So yeah, that's a really good observation. Excellent. All right, who would like to go next? Rachel or Alexis?
I can. This is Rachel.
Okay.
So the artist I picked was Thomas Allen, and so like I normally do illustration and stuff, and when I saw his art, it was honestly like the closest to what I usually do, and so I looked at it and was like, oh, it's really interesting that he can take these illustrations and make them 3D art in a way, and so like it's really just like paper cutouts of these Pulp Fiction novels, and I really, really liked it. And it was a really inspiring thing to me, just like even if because I'm going to be sticking with 2D as I continue on in my career, but I really am inspired by his art because even though it is 3D art, it is something I can take a lot of inspiration from as a 2D artist, and the way that characters are like displayed and like how everything pans out and like is just like laid out in the photo and stuff like that. So it's his art is really, really interesting to me in how it like toes the line between 2D and 3D and plays with both in the same piece. So yeah.
All right, excellent. Very good. All right, Alexis. Oh, I should say before I go on though that the only thing that bothers me about him is that I'm a collector. I used to be a collector. I collected comic books quite a bit, and there's something about taking one of these old pulp magazines that are now collectibles and cutting the covers up. And I just, you've got to have a lot of chutzpah to do that. I'll just say that. But I really enjoy his work as well. Okay, Alexis.
Okay, so I did the research project on Andy Goldsworthy, and I've seen his work before, and it's just so satisfying to me to look at. And then doing the research and seeing how he makes his works and how patient he has to be making his works. But then the fact that they don't last that long at all, it's just really interesting, his work ethic, and that he's not making these monuments to withstand the test of time. He's just making art for him to explore the world around him. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, there's a. I think the term is wabi-sabi in Japanese culture, or his traditional Japanese culture. The idea that beauty is found in the ephemeral, the fleeting. And I remember watching something with Andy Goldsworthy where he was building these menhir stacks or arches with slate on the beaches. And time and time again, the thing would just fall apart before it was halfway done. And then you'd look after a day's work and you'd see this beach full of these arches that once the tide came in, they'd all be gone. And he worked and worked and worked, and then now they're gone. And I think that there's something to that. There's value. I think there's a definite value in the process, and the process itself sometimes can be the most important thing. So I really like those observations. Very good. Okay, now we're going to go through, and everybody's going to address this. And we can do it one of three ways, and you guys can tell me which way you want to do it. First, we can go through and have everybody talk about the biggest challenge. Second, we can go through after that, after the biggest challenge, you talk about the biggest success. Or the last one, last option is everybody can talk about both the biggest challenge and dramatic success. And thinking about that, I was going to say let's vote on it, but then I thought, actually, I want everybody to go through and list your biggest challenge first, and then at the end we'll talk about the most spectacular successes. I think that's how I would like to do it. So let's go down the line. Who would like to talk about the biggest challenge in their class first?
I can go.
Bailey.
Oh.
Who would like to do it? Grace, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
For me, the biggest challenge in this class was probably just keeping up with all of the different assignments within each module. So like keeping up with the work log, at the same time trying to get all my hours in, at the same time doing like the artist research. I had a hard time like balancing that because I wanted to focus so much on like the project and working on that, and so sometimes I'd forget about the artist research and have to go back and like do them after the fact. So that was just like managing my time in that way was probably the hardest part.
All right, good. Excellent. All right, who would like to go next?
I can.
I could do it.
JC.
JC, okay.
Probably the biggest challenge for me was only having 1 day a week in person to work on projects, especially when some of them you can only really use materials that were at the school. So it was really, really tough to try and find time outside of the scheduled class to work on them, especially when I wanted to work on it more. But then, I wrote something else down. And then just the biomorphic abstraction, just because that's mainly the hardest part, because I wanted that to be so much better than it was, but no matter how hard I tried, it was hard to get the concept that the block was going to create something that we didn't intend, kind of thing, where you have to allow the medium to work the way it wants to.
All right, good. Excellent. All right, who would like to go next?
I could go next.
Okay. This Taylor?
This is Taylor, yeah.
Okay.
I think the most challenging thing for me was the service learning project. I have never done anything like that before. Like working with somebody else to do a large project like that. But I think in the end, it was also the most satisfying thing that I did with the class. I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. So yeah, I don't know if that's specific enough.
No, I think that's good. We're just going to go quickly through these and then talk about the biggest benefit or the best thing. So yeah, that's good. I think the service learning thing is something that's really out of left field, and I'm really impressed at the people who stuck with it, because everybody's used to doing research, and I'm not knocking that. I think that is incredibly valuable, but I think there's a scary factor with the service learning that is can be a little bit daunting, and so that's impressive. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go next. This is David.
Bailey. Oh.
Or Bailey can go, and then I'll go after her. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good.
The hardest thing for me was probably the little assignments in between projects as well. Just to get those all finished, and but also really focus on those projects to make sure they're good and up to the expectations and guidelines. And then also like the carved biomorphic subtraction. Someone was mentioning earlier, like it was harder to subtract than add to their art, which I can definitely relate to. I felt like that was a lot. I've never done that either, and that was really hard to form something out of a little block and make it even bigger. But
I think that's a good observation. It seems like that was the biggest mental shift for almost everybody dealing with the carving. Very good. Okay, Mr. David.
Yeah, so one of my biggest challenges in this class was kind of just keeping, motivation isn't the right word, but I would start, there was a lot of projects where I would start one thing and realize that it was not working how I had expected. And that's just probably due to my lack of experience on working with like hands-on material. So a lot of the wire sculptures, I switched paths completely like halfway through. But I just put them on the back burner, and that's the nice part about not having, exact due dates in this class, is I was able to put them on the back burner, think about them while I worked on the more current assignments, and then kind of come back to them even stronger than before. But man, that carved biomorphic abstraction, a lot of people are saying it too, but yeah, just the complete subtraction aspect of it was completely foreign to me. But I'm also glad I did that one because of how foreign it was, and it made me appreciate the old masters sculpting work even more, actually trying it for myself, because it's like I have no idea how they managed to not freak out, and I'm sure they did during their work. So
yeah, I have a recurring nightmare where Michelangelo sneezes while he's carving David.
No.
Yeah, very good observations. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go. This is Kelly.
Kelly, okay.
Yeah. So yes, the carved project was hard. But I would say that timing was hard for me, managing my time, kind of like Grace was saying. And with that, I would say the cardboard was probably even harder than the carved one for me, just in the sense that I personally felt rushed to do it, and then it was mostly working with like found objects, and it was just hard for me to, I felt like I had to scramble to find the objects to make a texture on my texture tiles. And so I wish I had a little bit more time with that, but that being said, there's not really much we could have done about it with the COVID restrictions. So, and that was probably the hardest thing for me this semester, because I'm saving my carved for my biggest success. So.
All right, great. All right, who's next?
I can go next.
Okay.
And this is Brianna.
Brianna, okay.
So I think for me, the hardest part was knowing when to stop. Because for me, I love detail. I love fine details. And it was just hard because I'm like, oh, this could be so cool if I did this, this, and this. And then planning it and actually executing it and knowing when to stop with the execution was hard for me. Just because I didn't realize that, I mean, sorry, one moment while I try to formulate this. How simple I could make them and still get my point. Like my projects, how I can make my projects and still get my point across in the message that I wanted people to get, like with less detail. So that was interesting for me to learn because I love adding detail. So I think also the biomorphic abstraction project was really hard for me because I had to subtract instead of add the fine details. So detailing was an interesting part for me. I learned how to simplify.
I think that's a really interesting process to go through because, like, I don't, when you edit the writing that you've done, when you build something on your own, there's always something you can add to it. And there's always this little nagging thing in the back of your mind saying, well, I could do this or do that, and it'll make it better. There was an artist that I really like. His name is Barnett Newman. He would do these paintings that evolved into something where they're just gigantic canvases with essentially a vertical stripe. And what he was trying to do was engage the viewer in the process of inspiration, but parsing it down to the most basic elements. And it became a large painting that was blank with just a vertical stripe to it. And I think also Pete Mondrian, we talked about him taking the natural landscape and parsing that down, removing everything that he felt that was not entirely necessary. And I think that your observation is a really good one. That is a tremendous challenge. How do we know when to stop? I think that's really good. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go. This is Hiram.
Right. Excellent.
So actually, one of the hardest things about this class that I think was also the greatest blessing for me was not having due dates. Because like David said, I was able to focus on multiple aspects of different modules at the same time. But at the same time, that also gave me an opportunity to focus on other projects in my other classes. And because of that, I'm going to be taking advantage of your generosity and giving us a couple of days after today to turn in my projects. So I think that is definitely both an absolute blessing and a test to each individual student on staying on top of things and not procrastinating.
All right. It's sometimes, to be honest, I don't think you could really call it procrastinating when, like David was saying, you have to process the information sometimes, and there's layers to it. So don't be too hard on yourselves, guys. All right.
Well, a good 40% of my time was procrastination. I won't lie, but yes, I was thinking. But yeah, I won't lie. I did procrastinate.
All right. Who goes next?
I can go. This is Lauren. I think definitely the open due dates. I'm just gonna echo the exact same thing. It was super useful when I needed to, when like a lot of other classes had stuff due with a way less flexible due dates. It was very good to be able to do that. But yeah, now there's a lot to do in 2 days. I've been chipping away at most of what I have left, but it's gonna be quite a few days.
Well, I appreciate you guys' honesty. It was not designed to put an extra burden on people. I know that the way my brain works is that sometimes I have to just step back and let things process for a bit before I can readdress it. And not everybody's the same. And I'm sorry it has caused a little bit of stress for some people and a lot for others. But I'm confident the students at UVU, in my experience, have had a higher percentage of professionalism than other groups that I've worked with, and I really appreciate that. All right, who would like to go next?
I can go next. This is Kayla.
Excellent.
Just kind of like what everyone else was saying. Like, I was trying to think of something else to say, but like, this was also what I dealt with. Just like having a lot to do at the end, I felt like, because I kind of struggled with, you know, like I wanted to give each project their own time and not rush through them, because I felt like it'd be beneficial for myself as well. But I felt like right at the end I had to, you know, kind of rush through everything, and like I couldn't give everything the time that it deserved in a sense. And it was also hard because I was trying to balance taking 4 other classes, and it was just like a lot at the end. But I'm glad that we don't have any due dates, which is like the best part of it. Just because I've taken the last 2 weeks just to like really sit down and try to give everything the time it deserves, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. All right, excellent. Who's next?
I can go next if you want. This is
All right.
Brooke.
Brooke?
Yeah, pretty much the same as everyone else. Just I think I could have done a bit better on like the bigger projects if there weren't like the little stuff. But I mean the little like artist research and stuff, those were kind of helpful in finding new artists to get interested in. But like as far as like projects and stuff, I could have done a little bit better if I didn't have to worry about like, you know, putting in like the work logs or like just like all the other little stuff. But I mean, it wasn't really much of a problem. It was just I think I could have done better, but
it probably wasn't much of a problem, but it is a definite shift in what we've been used to, at least what I've been used to the last several years. Yeah, this last year has been odd, to say the least. And I think that affects a lot of what we're doing. Okay, good. Who's next?
I can go. It's Emma.
Excellent.
I think probably the hardest part for me in this class is going to be basically like any of the textbook work and any of the writing assignments. Like one of my favorite thing about most of my art classes is that, you know, there aren't usually quizzes and you don't have to write anything. And like, I totally see the value in those things being a part of this class. But like for me, it was always like pulling teeth to get those assignments through to, and it shouldn't be, because like, I feel like it should be fairly easy. I don't know. But like for me, that was always like the biggest barrier. It's like, oh no, I have to sit down and write something that should only take me like an hour, but it's probably going to take me 3 because I can't focus. So that was my biggest thing, but I still thought it was beneficial. So
I really sympathize with that, because I became an artist because the written word, I wanted to communicate without having to write anything, and that's why I became an artist. And so being forced into a situation where I have to write, it just was incredibly uncomfortable at the beginning. And now it's no longer incredibly uncomfortable, it's just slightly uncomfortable. But I really appreciate that perspective. All right, who's next? We have 6 more people.
This is
Sarah?
my bad. This is Sarah. I can go.
Okay, great.
Just to mix it up a little bit, I think the hardest part was kind of like what everybody else is saying, just the ability to turn things in late, which was so amazing. Everybody thanks you for that over and over again. But the outside of class time, it was hard to pace yourself. And
Right.
for me specifically, the work log was hard because it'd be so sporadic, like when I could get to campus, and then sometimes I'd spend like an entire day on campus and hours go by and you can't remember what you were working on at what time. But there is the ability to go back in Canvas and check to see when you turn things in. And anyway, it was kind of a scramble to get the hours together and then realize like, holy cow, I spent like 16 hours on that and I didn't even realize, you know? So it pays to definitely log your work as you go so you can track how much time you're spending on something and, you know, allocate it to something else, a different module. Because, man, I got caught up sometimes and I'm like, holy cow, I should have spent more time on that project instead of that project. So the work log was hard for me to keep up with and keep consistent. But I think I did a pretty good job keeping it legit and actual, authentic. It was stressful. I'm like, man, I should have written that down.
Yeah, and that's one of the backdoor aspects of the work log, is that I wanted you folks to realize how much time you do put in to the work that you do. Because I think one of the things that I hear is students don't seem to really always give themselves credit for the work that they do. And so I appreciate that you do appreciate the work log, even though it was a pain in the neck. All right, who's next?
I can go. This is Nicole.
All right.
I think the hardest part for me was my time management. It was definitely hard just being in class 1 day a week, and so when I was at home, I I didn't have as much motivation to work on projects as I should have.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Good observation. All right, who's next? We have Madeline, Alexis, Rachel, and Summer.
I'll go. This is Rachel.
Okay.
So I think the most challenging thing for me was just like the transition from 2D to 3D art. And that took me a while, like not necessarily that it was hard to do the projects, because at least for the first couple, I was totally fine. They were really fun actually. But then when it got to the plaster carving, that actually like kicked my butt. I was trying to figure out how to actually like carve it and like actually feel like good about it in a way. Like, I mean, I was still okay with it in the end, but it was a very, very different medium for me, and it was really hard to adjust to that. And I had to take like a month break from it before going back to it and actually finishing it. And it was very difficult, and it was a big hoop to jump through. But
Right.
you know, I eventually got it done, and I think it really helped me like kind of step away from 2D a little bit more.
All right, excellent. That's I appreciate your honesty in that too. I think everybody, when they deal with this class, there is something or another that kicks their butt, and I'm glad that you were able to face up and deal with it anyway. Excellent. Okay, we have Madeline.
I can go.
Okay, great.
I would say the hardest part for me would probably be kind of the research part of it, just because I'm so bad like with names. I'm so bad with remembering things that I honestly had to go back so many times and reread it or rewatch little videos about people, just because I'm like, because it's so new for me, everything people do kind of gets jumbled in my head. And I would say honestly, just like going the transition from, you know, more camera stuff to hands-on, where it's a lot more like visually demanding and in different aspects than I'm used to.
All right, good, great, excellent. So you agree that the transition was the big thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we have either Alexis or Summer, whichever would like to go first.
I can go, Alexis.
Okay. All right.
I kind of had the same issue that Rachel did of that shift into dimensional. I've never really worked three-dimensional. And realizing that your final work is very rarely going to turn out like the sketches, or at least in my case, they rarely turned out like my sketches. And I just had to work with the material to figure out what exactly I was going to do in the end.
All right, great. Excellent. And then Summer.
Yes, and sorry, just like repeat the question really fast. I was listening to people, but
Just the biggest challenge of the class of the semester.
oh, okay. So the biggest challenge for me of the semester was I think working in 3D design is, for me personally, is really hard because I would say that I'm not very good like with like my like motor skills, like having to do things with my hands, and I think that just grasping the concept of three-dimensionality and having things creating things that are stable and that are still going to be effective as a piece of art was really hard, and using different materials, even the using different materials was very interesting because I learned how to create things that were very different, and I thought that was really difficult, constantly having to change materials, but it was good for me to learn that, and it was a good learning experience.
All right, great. Excellent. These are all good observations, and it's good to talk about the challenges. This class, one of the things that is so irritating is that dealing with stress is how we grow, how muscles grow, how ability grows, and dealing with challenges as we address them and face them, that's what helps us to become better. And I say that's really irritating because it would be so much nicer if you could just grow through having only successes. That would make me so much happier. Now for this last part, we are going to go through and talk about the biggest successes of the class. And instead of waiting for people, I'm just going to go through and call on people in the order that they're in the role, if that's all right with you guys. And if it's not all right, I hope you deal with it. So I'm going to start with Kayla, and then we're going to go to Sarah and Camilla, and Sarah and then Nicole, and just keep on going down the list. All right? So the first one will be Kayla, and I would just want you to talk about the biggest success that you had in the class, the happiest moment, or the most relief you felt. And if that means that the biggest success in the class will be surviving until Saturday when the semester is over, then that is totally fine. So take it away, Sarah, Kayla.
Probably for me was doing the carving. I'm not used to working with 3D stuff, and it was just like really satisfying to like slowly chip away at it, and then finally have something that like I really enjoyed, especially like right after sanding it with the sandpaper. I just kind of had like this moment that like, wow, I made this, which is just like a kind of like what was said before. It's kind of like seeing the fruits of your labor in a new way that I didn't expect to, and it was just a lot more satisfying and rewarding for me.
All right, excellent. And I feel bad that you reminded me of something that I thought is really important. If there's anything that you folks have looked at the school, I would recommend picking it up before the end of this week, if at all possible. I will be putting it on, moving it on a shelf, so you have next week to pick stuff up as well. But Kayla just mentioned that as soon as she said it was really satisfying, then I thought there's probably going to be people that want to keep their stuff. And so that's why I'm saying that. But I really appreciate that observation. because you were also one of the ones that said that the carving was a big challenge. And the fact that you felt satisfied when you were done, I think that says a lot. Excellent. Okay, Sarah, you're next. What is the greatest success?
I would say I really enjoyed the wire sculpture project, just because we picked our artist so early on in the semester that when we went to do module 2 and I saw Alexander Calder in there, I mean, I had already been messing around with wire. Like the second I saw him, I'd already started messing around. So to be inspired by certain artists and their craft, and then for you to present a project doing the exact same thing, and lining them up like that, it was really cool to be fully immersed into multiple artist experiences and then, you know, pick what you wanted to go off of. So I appreciated being able to take my time with the wire sculpture because it was really important to me and I wanted something cool at the end of it. So I played around with so many different ideas. And then when I finally decided to do my cat, I did a cat sculpture. I took my time with it and it turned out exactly how I wanted it to. And I really feel like I kind of embrace like the Alexander Calder simplicity and abstraction from it. And it was just really good to get that practice out there and to immerse ourselves in multiple artists, but to actually find one that resonates with you and then, you know, try and make art that looks like theirs. So I love the wire sculpture project so much. So that one was my most favorite, and I'm hanging it up in my room, and I set up like lights on it, so it looks like my cat is flying in my room, and she's got like a spooky shadow in the corner. So I love that I can make art and then see it in my room or in my house every day. So loved that project. Big success.
All right, excellent, very good. Okay, Nicole, what was your greatest success?
I think my biggest success was the texture tiles project. I never really thought about cardboard as being something you could make art out of, and so it was really interesting to see like all the different ways I could use the cardboard to create texture. And it was just really fun. I had fun making all the little squares.
All right, excellent, very cool. Bailey.
I was also gonna say the texture tiles project. I used cardboard and also plastic garbage bags, like grocery bags, and I never thought I would be able to use art with either of those, especially garbage bags. But I just liked getting out of, thinking out of the box and creating, like a braid-like texture with the garbage bags, or just like almost like confetti-like or tissue paper, or I don't know how to describe it, but just that additional pop of material was just really cool for me to see, and I really enjoyed that project.
All right, that's great. I'm starting to hear two themes. One is like what Sarah and Kayla, I think, were both talking about, being really happy with something that represented initially a challenge. And then what Bailey and Nicole are talking about is just the joy of experimenting with completely new materials. So excellent, very good. All right, Madeline.
I would say it would probably be the one we carved, the white one we carved. I can't remember what it's called, with the plaster, just because that was one that took like the most time. It was the most time consuming, so it was something that was like the hardest for me. And you kind of go to panic a little bit, and you're like, oh, this is taking forever. I don't know like what it's going to turn out to be, or how long this is going to take me. But then when you finally finish it and turn it in, it's kind of just like you're proud of yourself, and it's a good feeling.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I had warned people that it was going to be taking twice as much time as all the other modules, and it was interesting to me, people like Madeline realizing, oh yeah, this is taking a lot of time. All right, very good. Okay, Emma. Your biggest success.
My biggest success, I don't know, cause like I feel like as an artist in my own chosen like medium, I'm like mildly competent. And like this 3D art is all just the approach to it just feels so incredibly different from how I normally go about creating that I don't know, like I enjoyed my experience with all of the different projects, but I don't know that I'd necessarily say that like I think any of them are amazing. But like I would say that it like broadened my appreciation for this facet of art, 3D sculpture, spatial settings, more gallery things. I'd call that a win for me, especially because like for so long I just like wrote off most of that kind of art, especially if it's more abstracted, and I feel like I can look at it and like actually have some kind of connection with it, and I think that's my favorite part.
I think that's a really good observation, and I think sometimes one of the best things to come out of this class is when people realize people making different stuff, they're working hard too, and just being able to expand that vocabulary of appreciation is a real positive thing. So that's a very valuable observation. Excellent. Okay, Grace. Grace, are you still with us? Okay, we will cycle back to her. Kelly, what was your biggest win?
Mine would be the carving, like most people said. And not just because it was like super hard, obviously, super different than anything I've ever done, but it broke in half on the last day of class. So I had to glue it back together and try to salvage it. And actually, it breaking, I have a lot of negative space in the middle of it. And I don't think I would have finished it without it breaking. So maybe that was the silver lining. But I would say that was the biggest success. And then also, I really enjoyed the structure with skin. That was one I struggled with at the beginning when I first made it. And I actually just scrapped my first go at that and redid it. And just explored more movement with that. And I don't know, I think movement was kind of what I was hoping to explore with a lot of these projects. And I feel successful in the sense that I was able to explore movement in the carving and within the structure with skin as well.
All right, excellent. Very good. Okay, we are on Taylor.
I think a lot of people have already kind of talked about this, but I've really had my mind open to, I guess, like the fine art snooty stuff that before I thought was just kind of like stupid and convoluted, but now I can really appreciate it. And I think that's just because I've never really even tried to understand like sculpture or the abstract, but this class kind of like forced me to, and I really appreciate that. I also, like I mentioned before, I really loved the service project, and being at like the final like big event for my project was really satisfying to kind of just be surrounded by the people I was working with and the people that got to benefit from it.
All right, excellent. Very good. I think we're dealing with a couple of themes again. Like Kelly's talking about dealing with materials or techniques that she was not familiar with, and then coming away with really being happy with the end result. And Taylor is talking about like something that Emma had said, just expanding a vocabulary of appreciation. So excellent, very good. Okay, let's see, is Grace back with us? All right, JC, what was your biggest win?
My biggest win, I actually really enjoyed the slot sculpture project. Like other people have said, I had no idea that you could use cardboard as a medium and actually turn out well. And to me, it was very, very satisfying to have something where you cut into it and then you can just slot it together and it stays put, and it's like a pretty strong structure. And so I ended up taking probably not the most time, because the biomorphic abstraction, I took more time on that one, but this one I was actually able to take it home, and I really wanted to work on it. I wanted to see what else I could do, and I could totally see myself creating something else in the future with that, just because it's an easy, accessible material, and I just had a lot of fun doing it.
All right, excellent, very good.
And I also have to leave for work right now. So is it all right if I slip out?
That was the last question. So go for it with one last thing. If you have any other videos that you need me to put on the channel, just make sure and email them to me,
Okay.
like the PowerPoint or critiques. Okay?
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Sure thing. All right, Alexis.
Yeah, so even though I think that shift into 3D was the biggest challenge, I think it was also like the biggest success, like we've been saying, with earning that appreciation for three-dimensional art and getting more emotionally invested into the works. I don't know, it was really interesting to me to work with 3D and get that new understanding.
All right, excellent, very good. Good observation there too. Because there is a specific, there's actually a physical change that happens in your brain when you shift from 2D to 3D awareness. And so I'm glad that even though it's painful, you guys have been able to navigate it. Grace, is your speaker working? Okay.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I've been having a little trouble with it.
Okay. Would you address that question? What was the biggest success from the class?
Yeah. Biggest success, I think just like having the opportunity to really explore three-dimensional forms was probably the biggest success. So I think I had the most time and like gave myself the most time to do that for the wire sculpture. Yeah, I think I was like managing my time better towards the beginning of the semester. And so I like was able to take more time and really put like more effort into it and more thought into it and make it more like personal.
All right, excellent. Very good. Okay, Brianna.
I think my biggest success was the structure with skin project, just because it was like the one project I had where my idea was actually like what I saw in my head, I was actually able to execute almost exactly. So I feel like that was probably my biggest success, and I also felt like the amount of detail I was able to get into it was pretty good.
All right, excellent. Very good. Brooke.
I think my research was probably my most successful part. I really liked the way the presentation came out. As far as like actual art projects, I think the carved bimorphic abstraction was okay. I think that one turned out pretty good too.
All right, excellent. Again, another theme that I'm noticing is that Brianna and Brooke are both talking about successful projects, and then a couple other people mentioned just a cognitive shift that was really a big win for them. And I think that's very interesting to observe as well. And I think sometimes when we accomplish something, when we finish something that we're happy about, there is a very strong sense of accomplishment. And usually, hopefully, that's enough to keep us going through the rest of the stuff that is just not so interesting. So I appreciate that. Lauren.
I think one of my biggest successes was just the experience I had with the biomorphic abstraction one. Like, I think that, like, I've been doing art since I was very little, but that was like the first time I think I actually like got lost in the process, and like it like really felt like the piece was telling me how to make it. Like, I don't know if I've ever experienced something like that before. It was just really fun. I enjoyed doing it a lot.
All right, excellent. Very good. Yeah, when I first said that, allow the piece to speak for itself, I got so many looks from you guys about I am off my rocker, but I think that was the first time that you really realized it. I thought that was kind of funny. All right, David, what was your biggest success?
I actually feel really solid about my artist research project because I kind of went into it. You know, I picked one, and I can't remember why I switched in the beginning, but then I picked Ana Mendieta, and I was just kind of like, I don't know. And then I actually like looked at her work, and then I actually started to like study it for real. I actually sat down and took some time to really, really study it. And I'm like, wow, their stuff is so cool, because I didn't realize someone could use their body in the way she did to create some of the stuff she did. And I just thought that was really cool. But in regards to the actual projects too, that carved biomorphic abstraction, even though it was one of the hardest for me and it took the longest, it was really insightful. And as you know, I ended up cracking it right at the end. But it was nice knowing that it wasn't a big deal, so I didn't get too stressed about it. But
Right.
that research project was probably one of my favorite things, to be honest, because you know I barely researched any 3D artists, and it was cool to just do that.
Well, I also appreciate the fact too that some of you picked artists that were so much unlike your immediate experience, and she is definitely an unusual person, and I really appreciated that. That was a good research one.
Yeah, I wanted to pick the weirdest one I could when I went through that list. So
excellent. Hiram.
I would say for me, just being able to see that I was able to apply a lot of the skills I've accumulated over my lifetime of doing art, of creating, of building, of designing. I think it was really important for me to see that I was able to apply those things no matter what materials I was given, no matter what the design itself was, no matter what the assignment was. I just needed to buckle down and get the work done. I think that really was my most important moment for me, at least this semester.
All right, excellent. Rachel.
I really enjoyed the structure with skin project. It was probably my favorite one out of all of them, especially just because it kind of gave me an opportunity to play with color, even though that was like not a requirement for the project. I was just like, well, I'm going to be using like fabric and paper and things like that. And the fabric I have access to is very colorful, same with the paper. And so I just like rolled into it and like really got a chance to like express the kind of aesthetics I like in things like that. And I tried doing that more in other projects too. I just really like incorporating parts of my aesthetics into projects and making it really fun for myself. Even if I wasn't like fully into the fact that it was 3D, I was still having fun, and that was really important for me.
All right, good. So it sounds like Hiram, you were able to use your previous previously gained abilities for this class, and then Rachel, you were able to use your aesthetic and find something to apply it to. And I think both of those are that's a really valuable awareness to have, because even when we're doing something completely new, it's really difficult to avoid using our previous experience, and I'm glad that both of you were able to use that in a positive way. So excellent. Okay, Summer.
Okay, so I thought the biggest success was actually the very first product that we did, the house. For me personally, I don't know. I really ended up liking my how it turned out. But also the reason that it was such a success is because of how much I learned doing it. I've never really done like any, origami or folding stuff, and since my primary medium is 2D design, it was so interesting to learn how to create something three-dimensional out of the two-dimensional realm, and how shapes work and form together to create something new. And I just thought that that was the most successful project for me, and I I thought it was very interesting. I think that a lot of the projects were successful, but I really enjoyed that first project.
All right, excellent. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate all of your comments. It was good to hear that everybody had success in at least some aspect of the class. And what is interesting to me too is, for the most part, the successes were the mirror of the element that was the most challenging as well. You guys stuck to it, and you found success in the thing that gave you the hardest time. I thought that was really very interesting, and I think it speaks to what kind of people you are as artists too. There are a couple of things that I want to talk about before we leave. I haven't received all the PowerPoint presentations with narration, and I haven't received all the informal presentations about service learning projects, and I have not received all the last video critiques. So please get those done in the next couple of days and send them to me. Again, with the critiques, they only have to be a couple minutes, and you can film it on your phone and send me a WAV or a movie or an MP4 file, and I can put it on YouTube. For the research presentations, again, the same 3 files. If it's something that isn't compatible, there's a YouTube page that I will send to you that will give you a list of all the compatible files. And then for the service learning, for those of you who have done lessons that you've recorded, there's already a couple that are on there that I think are really successful. You've done lessons or video presentations for your deliverable. Please send those to me, as well as your presentation. Again, for the research, the artists would be about 5 to 8 minutes, and for the informal presentation for research learning, it should be at least 3 minutes. It should be about 3 minutes or so. There are a couple that are on there that are a little bit more involved. And then we also have, if you're doing lessons and things like that that you needed a video, make sure you send me those, and I'll put them on, because the chair is really interested to see what we're doing. And so far, things have been looking really good. Thursday night at midnight is when everything is finally due. I've been trying to stay up on top of things that have been turned in, giving comments and feedback. I think you have, if you need to go back and redo stuff and then resubmit it, please tell me so I can make sure and go back and check it, because for whatever reason, I don't always get the note from Canvas that something's been resubmitted. So please make sure that you let me know what's going on so I can go back and give you the points that you've earned. All right, we just have a couple minutes. Any last questions from anybody? Any last concerns?
I was surprised to see that Canvas was still open for us to turn things in. Is it going to be open until Thursday? Should I keep submitting things through Canvas until Thursday, or should we just be emailing you directly just in case?
This is a really good question. Kelly had to submit some things, and she made sure and emailed me to let me know when the stuff was submitted so I could go back on and check. I really appreciated that. I would say go on Canvas, do everything you can. Canvas should be open, I hope, until Thursday at midnight. If you're not able to submit it on Canvas, then email it to me directly. Even if you are able to submit it on Canvas, please do it what Kelly did and email me as well and let me know that you put it on there. So that way I can make sure and go back, because for whatever reason, sometimes, like I mentioned, I don't always get the message that something was resubmitted, and I don't always see the notices that something was submitted in the first place. So the answer is, Sarah, yes, I believe Canvas will be open. Whether or not it is, let me know. Submit everything you can, and if you are unable to submit it, then email it to me directly. All right? Does that answer it?
Perfect. Yes,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, excellent. Anybody else? All right, if you do have any further questions, please feel free to email me and let me know. This semester has been challenging. I think everything post-COVID this year has been challenging. But I really appreciate the fact that you folks have stepped up and you've done everything. I know that all of you are professional 2D artists, and so switching to 3D, even for a semester, can be an incredible challenge. And I'm very pleased to see that you guys have all tried really hard to do the best that you can. So this has been exceptional. Please remember too, if you have not turned in your SRI yet, do that and then send me the receipt, email it to me, and let me know so I can make that change. Everybody who does that gets 2% extra on their grade. And I've sent out a couple different things. If you submit anything to an art show this semester, let me know. If you've submitted between January 11th and May 6th to any show, whether or not you're accepted, let me know, and you'll get an extra 1% added onto your grade. All right? So let me just reiterate. I know that 3D is very challenging, but I'm very pleased with how everybody has done the best that they could. And it's been very interesting to me as well to see how much people's vocabulary of expression has expanded during the course of the term. And whether or not you still think it's frustrating, I can see that there's been a definite difference in everybody's work from the beginning of January until now. And I really appreciate that. And I hope that everybody has the most fantastic success in your chosen careers going into the future. And I hope to see you again, especially if you remember the good times about the class. It's always good to see that. And if you can go by this week, please try really hard to go by and pick up your stuff and take that home with you. Whether or not you ever use those projects again, they do make good last-minute presents to family members. All right, we'll see you guys.
Thanks a bunch, Andrew. See you around.
All right.
Okay, thanks. See ya.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you some other time, maybe next
All right.
semester.
Hopefully at
Thank
one of your
you.
restaurants. Okay, we'll see you guys.
Yes, come get some good food.